Hi, I'm Asha Raja and today we are going to talk about Freud. As you all may be aware about him, he was the first psychotherapist who connected the physical problems in the body with things which were happening in the mind. So he was one of the earliest of the psychotherapists, and today we are going to see what his theory is about. Though after him there are many other theorists who have come forward and given their own theories also, but Freud is still remembered because basically his theory of the first 6 years of life affecting the rest of the life and the personality of the person is still applicable in today's life, as well as many of the theorists are taking it as a basis for their theories also. That means all the rest of the theories are built on the basic theory or basic concept of the importance of the first 6 years of life according to Freud. Now, the main features of this therapy are the role of instincts, and he says that even the instinct of life and death are integrated into our own personality, and that is how the instincts play a very important role in our life. Now there is a dialectic between the conscious and the unconscious part of life. According to Freud, we are having two parts in our mind. The conscious part is actually a short and small layer on the mind. So suppose if this is our mind, and then we have the layer around it, that is the conscious part of our mind, while the main area of mind is unconscious to us. This was one of the very important concept that was developed by Freud. And actually, according to him, the conscious part of the mind is only 10%, while the unconscious is almost 90% of the mind is made up of unconscious. Unconscious is made up of all the repressed and repressed material right from our childhood. Childhood is not only the early childhood starting from 1 year or 2 years, but right from the birth. And now the new therapy is also that some of the things that are stored into our unconscious mind are also developed in the prenatal stages. So now according to this concept, the whole theory of psychoanalysis was developed by Freud. According to Freud, we have three main concepts of three main parts of our personality. The first one is called the id, which is mainly made up of the instincts. So what are these instincts? The survival instinct, the sexual instincts that we have for propagation of our species, and then we have hunger, we have thirst, and we have so many other things which are inborn with us. These are not learnt by any kind of education, but we are born with them. So it is something which is based on what is ingrained into us right from the beginning, right from the birth, and we cannot really get rid of it even when we grow up. So it is something which is ingrained, and it is based on the pleasure principle, because it is something which is very selfish. It does not care, like the small infant that we see, that when he is hungry and he wants his food, he is not ready to listen or wait for anybody. He wants to be attended immediately. When he is dirty, he needs to be clean. So it is something which is a basic part of our personality. We grow up with it, and then we have ego personality, which is really developed according to our experiences, our knowledge, our exposure to the outside world, and the ego is formed of the rational part of our experiences which we bear in our mind also, and it is a very important part of our personality, because the way the ego develops in a person is actually the main issue about the person's personality. Then we have superego, and this is the judiciary part of our personality. We are taught certain things right from our childhood. Do this, don't do that, this is good, this is bad, this is allowed, this is not allowed, etc., which we learn from our parents, from our culture, from our background in the schools, and all our surrounding is the one that is contributing to this kind of superego part of the personality, which is teaching us or keeping a check on us on what is good or what is bad. So, among these three parts of the personality, id, ego and superego, it is the ego which is a rational side of the person. Id is trying to pull the ego on its side, so it tells the ego, you do this now. You see, if you are, say, a student and you are studying and your friends are having a party somewhere, then the id would work on you and say, come on, you can study even tomorrow, but you can enjoy right now. And he tries to pull the ego towards itself. But then on the other side, there is a superego which says, no, nothing doing. You have got exams coming just next week, so you better sit and study. Now, this is the superego part which tries to dominate, but the ego is the one which is deciding on what is right, what is wrong, what should be your action at that moment. And that is the rational side of your personality, which is dominated by your ego. Then we have ego defense mechanisms. Now, what are these ego defense mechanisms? See, very often the ego is in confusion. It does not know how to act. It wants to really actually do some things, but it is forced to do something else because of its weakness or because of the too much pressure of either the id or the superego. So therefore we have ego which is in disturbed position. There's this kind of confusion about the ego's decisions and its action and reaction in the situation requires some kind of mechanism which would help the ego to get tide over that particular situation. And that is where the ego mechanisms come into play. Now we have repression, where we try and repress our feelings. We don't want them to come out. We are scared, but we don't want to show that we are scared. We repress our fear. Then we have denial. No, nothing is going to happen. This, you need not worry and you can go ahead. So we deny the things. Then there is reaction formation, where a person is doing something which he knows is wrong, but he goes ahead and he wants to deny that, and he wants to react in such a way that it would not appear, or he would not feel guilty about doing that thing. I have given all the examples in your notes and also with your other video that we have sent to you along with the notes. Also, these are very well described individually, so you can go through it, form your own examples and try and understand them in detail. Then there is displacement, where the emotion is directed towards one person, but that person you cannot express your emotion to, so you have to displace it on to the some other person. So that is a displacement. And then there is rationalization, where you just rationalize things by saying, oh, everyone is doing it, so why can't I do it? So you feel comfortable understanding or accepting that everybody is doing it, so it is okay, it becomes legitimate. But does it really become legitimate? No. Inside, your mind knows that what you are doing is wrong. But still, just to get tide over that very difficult situation, you try to pacify yourself by this displacement mechanism. Then, and the rationalization mechanism that we saw right now. Then there is sublimation, where people know, sometimes a person knows that I am not able to do this. For example, a person knows I am working very hard, but I am not able to study, and I am not so good in studies. So why not I do something else? So to tide over that feeling of failure, he may try something different. Like he may try out acting, or he may try out sports, and there he may be very successful. So sublimation is something which is socially acceptable event, or socially acceptable decision of a person to tide over his failure or his feeling of disappointment in some, by diverting its energies into some other direction. Then we have regression, where a person goes backward. We see this very often in the children. The child of say 6 years, when he gets a younger brother or sister or sibling, then he feels that he is going to lose all the parents' attention and love. So he once again wants to become a child. So he may start sucking his thumb, or baby talk, or wetting his bed. So all these come as a part of the regression, because he is trying to go backwards in his life, where he feels he is more comfortable, and he will be more accepted by the child, and the threat of losing the parents' love and attention is pacified. Then we have introjection, where the person is trying to swallow someone else's personality. Like he may want to become, like say for example his teacher, or maybe some politician, or somebody with whom he is working. Sometimes it can be even the boss, or it can be anyone who is in a authoritative position. So the person tries to swallow that person's personality, try and become like him, adapt his style of dressing, talking, behaving, and without really imbibing his real characteristics, he may just try to be that person outwardly. So that is the introjection. And then is the projection, where the person is, whatever is there in his mind, he is projecting over to the other person. Like say for example, a person may be jealous of somebody, and he may be not really able to contain his jealousy. Then in that case, he may try and make it appear that as if that other person is jealous of him. So he will just try and project whatever his own feelings onto the other person. Now, identification is something where person is identifying himself or herself with somebody who is a very important figure in his life. Like say the girl, the daughter may identify with the mother, and the son may identify with the father. Now in this case also, they try to become like the mother and become like the father, accepting their characteristics. And this is a very important mechanism which plays a role in role playing, or role model forming of the person, and it plays a very important role in the formation of his or that person's personality. Then there is a compensation where the people are involved in something which is not acceptable and which is making them feel very guilty, but they want to then meet with their guilt by doing something which would make the guilt feel little more pacified and little more acceptable for them. So suppose, for example, our man is having an affair outside his marriage, and he is feeling very guilty about it, though he may not consciously accept it, but unconsciously his superego is all the time working. Remember this, it is always the id, ego and superego. His attraction for that other woman will be a part of his id, which is trying to gain, it is based on the pleasure principle. Okay, and then there will be a superego which is biting him all the time, trying to correct him all the time. What you are doing is wrong. And then his ego is in turmoil. Okay, ego is disturbed. So therefore, the ego finds the mechanism which is compensation, and he will be showering his wife with a lot of compliments or some gifts and things like that, because his guilt would then become a little more softer. Then we have intellectualism, a person who is feeling very much disturbed about, he is not very certain about his self-esteem and self-worth. You would see that he tries to talk quite elaborately about his achievements and his travel, for example, or his knowledge, for example, in front of others, and he tries to give them the impression that he is very well versed with so much of knowledge and so much of experience, and actually he is feeling very much low about his own personality. He doesn't feel that very confident about his personality, and he resorts to actualism. So this is how the ego defense mechanisms, they are not really the psychological aberrations. They are just the way out, and many a times they are temporary. And of course, a person who is undergoing counseling is going to understand his own ego defense mechanism. And now, since you have the idea and the knowledge about how the ego defense mechanisms work in our life, you will be able to see it all around you. And this is definitely going to help you to understand other people more clearly. Now, besides Freud, today we are just going to see in brief what was Erikson's theory, which was based on Freud. He worked with Freud for quite a few years, and then he separated from Freud and formed his own theory, because he could not digest the idea that the entire personality with which we live for the rest of the life after 6 years of age is formed in the first 6 years only, and then after that there is no change that is taking place. But he agreed with Freud, where he said, yes, first 6 years of life are very important years in forming the basis of the personality. But the personality formation, development does not stop there. So he said that all the other experiences that we get after the 6 years are also added to our consciousness, and they also are contributing to our thinking, our living and our choices. So this is how his theory is going further than Freud in its development after 6 years of life. And that is how his theory is more known as ego psychology. And Freud's theory is more come to be known as id psychology. So this is a basic difference between the two. I've given this very much in detail in your theory notes. So you can go through it and you will understand that in Freud's theory, the oral, anal, phallic, latency and genital stage, the first 6 years of life, are actually going through these stages of development. Now in Erickson's case, oral is uh, equivalent to infancy. Anal stages we observe during the early childhood, say about toddlerhood, and this is infancy, this is about toddlerhood. Then the phallic stage comes in the preschool stages, preschool stage, and then there is a latency which comes in the later part of the school, and then there is a genital stage which is, according to the Erickson's theory, coming forward in the adolescent stage. We have described all these notes very much in detail in your theory part, so you can now go through it and understand how they are equivalent to Freud's thinking until the genital stage, but then they separate. And after the adolescence, the young adulthood, the middle age development and the later life is added to the basic personality by Erickson's theory. And I would add here that Jung actually also worked with Freud for quite a few years, and then he separated to form his own therapy. And Jung is more concentrating on the experiences that we have during the middle age, and then of course how it affects our later life. And according to him, the whatever our earlier personality formation and the experiences that we have, along with the middle age experiences, they can be also diverting a person into more of a creative work which he wanted to do. Maybe he gets into some musical learning or painting or writing, and this is where he becomes much more creative after he settles down with all these experiences of all these stages where the person is really developing and the person is going through a lot of turmoil. So in middle age, he says people do settle down and now they really have time and the effect of and learning and the maturity to get into the more creative part of the life. Then there is interpretation, which is used by Freud to interpret the wherever he sees by the regular sittings. That is very important in the Freud's theory and a psychoanalytical method of treatment. The interpretation is given by the psychoanalyst after he observes a certain current of thoughts and behavior in a client throughout the experience that the client and the analyst go over together, and then that interpretation is given